Welcome to the show. Today, like every Thursday, we're diving into the topic of people who are important to the world. We'll take a closer look at the rich life story of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, better known to pretty much everyone as Mahatma Gandhi. We've poured over a stack of sources, articles, research, our own notes, to really extract the most important insights about this extraordinary figure. Our mission, as always, is to give you a shortcut to being truly well informed, maybe with some surprising facts and just enough, well, interest to keep you hooked.
Exactly. Gandhi's life is, well, it's a profound study in transformation, isn't it? We'll explore not just the key events, but the enduring principles and the, frankly, massive global impact that make him so significant. And this raises a really important question. How does one person's unwavering commitment to an ideal actually shift the course of history? Let's try and unpack this.
Okay, so where do we begin? His birth, I suppose. 1869.
That's right. October 2nd, 1869 in Porbandar, coastal Gujarat, which was then part of the British Raj. His father, Karamchand Gandhi, was quite important, locally served as chief minister of Porbandar state.
And his mother, Putlabai, she sounds like a major influence.
Absolutely. Deeply pious, a Pranami Vaishnava Hindu. Known for her daily prayers, her rigorous fasts.
Yeah.
You can definitely see those threads later in his life. The family belonged to the Moldbaniya caste, that's the merchant community, the Vaishyavarna.
So what was he like as a kid? I read he was described as restless as Mercury.
Yes, twisting dog's ears, apparently. Quite the image.
Doesn't exactly scream future apostle of peace.
No, it doesn't. But then, conversely, he was also described as incredibly shy, tongue-tied even, a real contrast.
So a complex kid, what shaped him early on?
Well, beyond family, Indian classics were huge for him. Stories like Shravana, known for devotion to his parents, and King Harish Chandra, who sacrificed everything for truth. These stories really resonated. They laid the groundwork for his later identification with truth and love.
Academically. Was he a standout?
Yes. Nah, not really. Described as an average student in Rajkot, his main companions were books and school lessons. Pretty introverted, it seems.
And then a very early marriage.
Yes, arranged marriage at just 13 to 14-year-old Kasturbai Kapadia Kasturba, as she's known, May 1883.
He later regretted some aspects of that early relationship, didn't he? His feelings towards her.
He did. He wrote about his sort of lustful feelings and possessiveness towards his young bride, expressing regret. And his youth was marked by tragedy, too. His father died in late 1885. Gandhi was actually with his wife moments before his father passed, which caused him immense anguish.
Wow, that's heavy for a teenager.
It is. And their first child died just days after birth. They did go on to have 4 sons who survived: Harilal, Minalal, Ramdas, and Devdas.
So education-wise, what happened after school?
He went to Samaldas College, but dropped out. Then a family friend gave him some advice. Go study law in London.
London, that must have been a huge leap. Was his family okay with it?
Well, his mother was very hesitant, understandably. So Gandhi took a solemn vow to abstain from meat, alcohol, and women to persuade her.
That's quite a vow. Did it stick?
Yeah, it did. And it deeply influenced his time in London, which was from 1888 to 1891. Interestingly, his own caste community in Bombay actually excommunicated him for planning to go abroad.
Seriously, for going to England?
Yes, but he just ignored it and went anyway. He enrolled at University College, London, and the Inns of Court School of Law, Inner Temple.
And what about that shyness? London's a big, imposing place.
Surprisingly, he tackled it head-on. He joined a public speaking group to overcome it.
Really? Huh. And the vow, especially the vegetarian part.
That vow was key. It led him to actively seek out London's few vegetarian restaurants. This wasn't common then. He joined the London Vegetarian Society, the LVS, and even got elected to its executive committee.
So he got involved.
He did. And he started reading more widely, influenced by people like Henry Salt and the Theosophical Society, which is where he first seriously encountered the Bhagavad Gita in English translation.
Now, this is interesting. I read about his first real challenge to authority happening right there in the Vegetarian Society.
Ah, yes, the Allinson case. That's fascinating. Thomas Allinson, another member, was promoting birth control.
And the president, Arnold Hills, was strongly against it, thought it was immoral.
Right. And here's the kicker. Gandhi actually agreed with Hills about birth control, personally.
But he defended Allinson.
He did. He defended Allinson's right to hold a different view within the society. It was about the principle of free expression, even when he disagreed with the content.
That is quite telling, isn't it? Upholding principle over personal agreement, it feels like a little preview of his entire life's work.
It really does. An early sign of that unwavering moral compass, you could say.
So he finished his law studies.
Called to the bar in June 1891. But when he returned to India, he received devastating news his mother had passed away while he was gone. His family had kept it from him.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And his legal career didn't take off initially. He tried setting up in Bombay, but found he was still too shy for cross-examinations in court.
So back to Rajkot.
For a bit, drafting petitions. But then came an offer that changed everything. A Muslim merchant, Dada Abdullah, needed a lawyer in South Africa for a one-year contract.
South Africa. So 1893. He heads off thinking it's just for a year.
Exactly. Arrived in April 1893, age 23, he ended up staying for 21 years.
And his experiences there were, well, transformative seems like an understatement.
Immediately, yes. He was hit full force by severe racial discrimination. The stories are quite famous now.
Thrown off a train at Peter Maritzburg for being in first class.
Beaten by a stagecoach driver for refusing to sit on the floor.
Ordered to take off his turban in court.
Kicked off a public footpath. I mean, it was relentless.
You can only imagine the shock coming from his background.
Absolutely. These experiences forced him to confront the reality of the Indian position within the British Empire. It lit a fire in him. He had to fight for basic rights.
And he didn't waste time. The Natal Indian Congress.
Founded in 1894, he was instrumental in helping unite the Indian community there, turning them into a coherent political force.
And then there was that incident in Durban in 1897 where he was attacked by a white mob.
Right, and what did he do? He refused to press charges against his attackers. His reasoning was rooted in nonviolence. Pressing charges would only continue the cycle. It was an early, very public display of that principle.
Then came the Boer War. He volunteered.
He did, around 1900. He formed the Natal Indian Ambulance Corps, about 1,100 Indian volunteers.
Why an ambulance corps?
It was partly strategic. He wanted to challenge British stereotypes that Hindus particularly weren't suited for manly activities like military service, show their courage and loyalty. He even got a medal for it, the Queen South Africa Medal.
Okay, so activism is growing. Then comes 1906, a new law.
Yes, the Transvaal government passed a law requiring registration of all Indian and Chinese residents, fingerprinting passes, the whole thing.
And this is where Satyagraha really comes into play.
This is its birthplace, you could say. At a huge mass protest meeting in Johannesburg, September 1906, Gandhi first proposed this method. Satyagraha, literally devotion to truth, or truth force.
So not just passive resistance?
No, it was more active than that. It meant defying the unjust law openly, peacefully, and willingly accepting the punishment, imprisonment, fines, whatever came. Nonviolent protest as a moral force.
It's fascinating to track his views on race during this time. You mentioned they evolved.
They certainly did. Initially, his focus was very much on the discrimination faced by Indians. He sometimes even used arguments about Indians sharing an Aryan heritage to distinguish them from black Africans, which sounds jarring today.
Right.
But his perspective broadened. By 1910, his newspaper, Indian Opinion, was covering discrimination against Africans too. He started referring to Africans as the original inhabitants of the land.
That's a significant shift.
It is. And it's part of why someone like Nelson Mandela, decades later, could look back and admire Gandhi's struggle, despite those earlier complexities.
Yeah.
He also founded Tolstoy Farm in 1910 with Herman Kallenbach.
Tolstoy Farm. What was that?
It was a cooperative community, a sort of ashram, designed to sustain the families of satyagrahis who were imprisoned and to train people in the principles of peaceful resistance and simple living.
So after 21 years, he finally returns to India in 1915. He's 45 now.
Yes, arrives back a very different man than the shy lawyer who left. He quickly gets involved with the Indian National Congress.
And within a few years, he's leading it.
By 1920, yes. He assumes leadership and starts launching these massive nationwide campaigns, not just for independence or Swaraj, but for poverty reduction, women's rights, religious unity, ending untouchability, a whole platform for social reform.
And this is when he adopts the dhoti.
Correct. The short dhoti, made of khadi, hand-spun, hand-woven cloth, was a powerful symbol. It identified him with India's poorest rural population and was a direct rejection of British manufactured goods, a call for self-reliance.
Now, you mentioned earlier this question about the consistency of his nonviolence, the World War I recruitment thing.
Right, 1918. He actively supported the British war effort, even recruiting combatants. It seems contradictory, doesn't it?
It does. How did he square that?
His argument, complex as it is, was that true nonviolence, himsa, requires courage. He felt that Indians need to demonstrate their capacity for bravery, even through military service, before they could consciously choose nonviolence from a position of strength, rather than weakness or cowardice.
That's a deep philosophical point. It adds layers to just thinking of him as purely pacifist from the start.
Absolutely. It shows the evolution and perhaps the practical wrestling with his own ideals in a complex world.
But once back in India, his focus shifted to applying nonviolence very practically. Champaran.
Champaran, 1917, his first major success in India. He went to Bihar to investigate the conditions of indigo farmers who were being forced to grow indigo by British planters under terrible terms.
And he used satyagraha.
Yes, organized nonviolent protests, detailed investigations, civil disobedience. The authorities were taken aback, tried to order him to leave. He refused. The sheer scale of peasant support forced the administration to back down and set up an inquiry, which eventually led to concessions for the farmers.
A huge victory. And Kedah followed soon after.
1918, in Gujarat. There was famine and crop failure, but the British insisted on collecting full taxes. Gandhi organized the peasants in a tax revolt, refusal to pay. Again, mass mobilization, nonviolent discipline. Eventually, the government had to compromise and grant tax relief.
So he's proving this method works in India. What about Hindu-Muslim unity? That was always a concern.
A major one. In 1919, he controversially supported the Khilafat movement. This was a movement by Indian Muslims to support the Ottoman Caliphate after World War I.
Why controversially?
Because Gandhi saw it as a way to forge unity with Muslims against British rule. He hopes bringing Hindus and Muslims together on this issue would strengthen the independence movement. It did temporarily reduce communal violence, but some Hindu leaders, like the poet Rabindranath Tagore, were critical, feeling it mixed religion and politics dangerously.
Then things really heat up with the Rowlatt Act.
In 1919, yes, this act allowed the British to imprison suspected revolutionaries without trial. Indefinite detention, essentially. A huge clampdown on civil liberties.
Gandhi's response.
He called for a nationwide satyagraha, hurdles, strikes, protests. But then came the tragedy at Amritsar.
Jallianwala Bagh, April 1919.
A horrific massacre. British troops under General Dyer opened fire without warning on a large, peaceful gathering trapped in a walled garden. Hundreds killed, over 1,000 injured. Unarmed men, women, children.
A turning point, surely. How did Gandhi react?
His reaction was complex. While horrified by the massacre, he also strongly criticized Indians, who responded with violence against British civilians in retaliation. He famously undertook a fast to death, not against the British initially, but to pressure Indians to stop the rioting.
He fasted against his own side's violence.
Yes, he believed violence could never achieve a just end. This event, Jallianwala Bagh, fundamentally shifted his perspective. He concluded that seeking justice or fair treatment within the British Empire was impossible. The goal had to be complete independence, Swaraj.
And that led to the non-cooperation movement.
Exactly. Launched in 1920, this was satyagraha on a massive scale, boycotting British courts, schools, goods. Promoting khadi, the hand-spun cloth, became central. Millions participated.
And that led to his arrest.
In 1922, yes. He was arrested for sedition after violence broke out in Chaurishara, where protesters killed policemen. Gandhi, horrified, called off the entire non-cooperation movement, despite its momentum. He felt the people weren't ready for disciplined nonviolence. He was sentenced to 6 years, but served 2.
What happened while he was in prison?
The movement lost steam. The Congress Party saw some internal divisions, and unfortunately the unity forged during the Khilafat movement fractured, leading to renewed Hindu-Muslim tensions and conflicts.
So after his release in 1924, what was the next big push?
He focused on rebuilding unity, promoting khadi, fighting untouchability. But the next major national campaign was the Salt Satyagraha in 1930.
The Salt March, probably his most iconic protest.
Absolutely. The British had a monopoly on salt production and taxed it heavily, hitting the poorest Indians the hardest. Gandhi decided to defy this law.
By marching to the sea.
Yes. He started from his ashram with just 78 trained volunteers and walked 240 miles, about 400 kilometers, to the coastal village of Dandi.
And people joined along the way.
Thousands. By the time they reached Dandi, it was a huge procession. He then illegally made salt by evaporating seawater. This was the signal for nationwide civil disobedience. Millions started making or selling salt illegally.
What about the role of women in this? I read he was initially hesitant.
He was concerned about potential violence against them. But women demanded to participate, and they played a crucial role. Thousands joined the marches, picketed shops, made salt, and faced brutal police repression beatings. Verbal abuse with incredible courage. It was a major moment for women's involvement in the freedom struggle.
The British response?
Mass arrests. Over 60,000 people were imprisoned across India, including Gandhi himself. The scale of the protest and the non-violent resistance, despite the repression, drew worldwide attention. It put enormous pressure on the British government.
Leading to negotiations.
Yes, it led directly to the Gandhi-Irwin Pact in March 1931. Lord Irwin, the viceroy, agreed to release political prisoners in exchange for Gandhi suspending the civil disobedience movement.
And Gandhi went to London.
For the Second Roundtable Conference later that year, he was the sole representative of the Congress. He argued passionately for full independence.
How'd that go?
Not well, ultimately. The British were more focused on dividing Indians, talking about separate electorates for minorities like Muslims, Sikhs, and untouchables.
Gandhi opposed that.
Vehemently. He saw separate electorates based on religion or caste as a way to permanently divide India. He particularly clashed with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar over separate electorates for the untouchables, Dalits. This led to Gandhi undertaking a fast unto death, resulting in the Pune Pact, a compromise reserving seats for Dalits within the general electorate.
And this is when Churchill made that famous remark.
Yes, Winston Churchill, who was fiercely opposed to Indian independence, famously called Gandhi a seditious Middle Temple lawyer, now posing as a fakir, striding half-naked up the steps of the viceregal palace. Shows a level of contempt in some quarters.
Despite his prominence, Gandhi stepped back from formal leadership again.
He did. In 1934, he resigned his membership in the Congress Party. He felt his towering presence might be stifling other voices and viewpoints within the party. He wanted to allow for more diverse leadership, although he remained hugely influential, of course.
He also had disagreements within the movement, right? With Bose.
Yes, with Subhas Chandra Bose. Bose was elected Congress president twice, but had fundamental disagreements with Gandhi over the strategy for independence, particularly regarding nonviolence. Bose favored a more confrontational, even militaristic approach if necessary. Their differences led to Bose resigning and forming his own party.
Then comes World War II, a massive global crisis. How did Gandhi respond?
He was staunchly opposed to India participating in the war on Britain's behalf without being granted independence first. His stance hardened over time.
Leading to the Quit India movement.
Exactly. In August 1942, in a fiery speech in Bombay, Gandhi issued the call, "Quit India!" He urged the British to leave India immediately.
And he had a mantra for the people.
Karo Yamaro, do or die. But crucially, he stressed it had to be done with nonviolence. We shall either free India or die in the attempt. We shall not live to see the perpetuation of our slavery, he clarified. Neither kill nor injure British people, but be willing to suffer and die.
The British reaction was swift.
Immediate arrests. Gandhi, Nehru, and almost the entire Congress leadership were imprisoned. Gandhi himself was held for 2 years at the Aga Khan Palace in Pune.
A difficult imprisonment for him personally, too.
Extremely. His longtime secretary Mahadev Desai died there, and then, tragically, his wife Kasturba passed away in his arms in 1944 after 62 years of marriage.
That must have been devastating. And politically, what was the impact of the Congress leadership being jailed during the war?
It created a vacuum. While the Congress leaders were locked away, the All India Muslim League, led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, significantly grew its influence and support, pushing hard for the idea of a separate Muslim state, Pakistan.
So the path towards partition was clearing while Gandhi was imprisoned.
In many ways, yes. The political landscape shifted dramatically during those years.
When the war ended and independence was finally on the horizon, Gandhi's focus was
Vehemently opposing partition. He pleaded for a united India, where Hindus and Muslims could coexist. He believed partition along religious lines would be a disaster.
But the Muslim League was insistent.
Jinnah and the League demanded divide and quit India. They called for Direct Action Day in August 1946 to press for Pakistan.
Which led to violence.
Horrific, widespread religious violence, starting in Calcutta and spreading, riots, massacres. It was terrible.
What did Gandhi do?
He did what he always did. He walked right into the heart of the danger zones, places like Noakhali in Bengal and later Bihar, literally walking from village to village, often alone or with just a few companions, pleading for peace, trying to stop the killings.
Did the British leadership appreciate his efforts?
Not always. The viceroy at the time, Lord Wavell, was quite critical. He seemed to view Gandhi with suspicion, even accusing him of implicitly aiming for a Hindu Raj.
But partition went ahead.
Despite Gandhi's desperate efforts, yes. The British, exhausted after the war and facing escalating chaos, reluctantly agreed to partition. India and Pakistan became independent on August 14 and 15, 1947.
The human cost was immense.
Catastrophic. Estimates vary, but perhaps 500,000 people or more were killed in the communal violence surrounding partition. And somewhere between 10 and 12 million people were displaced in one of the largest, most brutal mass migrations in history.
Where was Gandhi on Independence Day? Celebrating?
No. He was in Calcutta, fasting and spinning yarn, trying to quell the riots there. Many credit his presence and his fast with preventing an even worse bloodbath in that city on Independence Day itself.
His fasting continued to be a tool.
Yes. His final fast began in Delhi on January 12, 1948. Again, the purpose was to stop the ongoing religious violence, particularly against Muslims in Delhi, and pressure the Indian government to release funds owed to Pakistan.
And just days after he ended that fast.
Tragically, yes. On January 30th, 1948, while on his way to his regular evening prayer meeting at Birla House in Delhi.
He was assassinated.
At 5:17 p.m., Nathuram Godse, a militant Hindu nationalist who blamed Gandhi for partition and for being too conciliatory towards Muslims, stepped out of the crowd, bowed, and then fired 3 bullets into Gandhi's chest at point-blank range. Gandhi collapsed, dying almost instantly. He was 78.
The news must have shocked the world.
Profoundly. Prime Minister Nehru famously announced it to the nation over the radio, saying, "Friends and comrades, the light has gone out of our lives and there is darkness everywhere."
What happened to Godse?
He and several co-conspirators were arrested, tried, and convicted. Godse and Narayanan Apte were sentenced to death and hanged. Gandhi's sons had actually pleaded for clemency in line with their father's principles, but it wasn't granted.
His funeral.
Tended by millions. The procession in Delhi was 5 miles long. His body was cremated according to Hindu rites at Rajghat, which is now a major memorial.
An incredibly dramatic and tragic end. But his ideas, his principles, obviously lived on. Can we talk about those core tenets?
Absolutely. His spirituality wasn't dogmatic, but it was deeply rooted in Hindu traditions, particularly Vaishnavism and Jainism. He lived by 5 great vows adapted from these traditions.
Which were?
Satya, which is truth. Ahimsa, nonviolence. Brahmacharya, meaning celibacy or self-control. Asteya, non-stealing. And aparigraha, non-possession or non-attachment.
Let's start with truth, Satya. That seems central.
Utterly central. He titled his autobiography, "The Story of My Experiments with Truth." For him, truth wasn't just a concept, it was God. He famously said, "God is truth," and later refined it to "truth is God." Satyagraha itself means insistence on the truth.
And it's about soul force.
Yes, contrasting it with brute force.
Yeah.
The idea is that by adhering to truth and expressing it nonviolently, you tap into a moral force that can purify or convert the oppressor, not just coerce them. It's deeply rooted in Hindu Upanishadic thought and Advaita Vedanta.
And ahimsa, nonviolence, that's the one most associated with him globally.
Right. He applied it on an unprecedented scale in politics. But again, it wasn't simple passivity. He saw it as the highest form of courage.
But he also said he preferred violence to cowardice. We touched on this.
He did. It's a controversial point. He believed that if the only choice was between cowardice and violence, violence was preferable. He felt nonviolence required immense bravery, and that one should be capable of fighting back before choosing not to. He'd rather India took up arms to defend its honor than, in a cowardly manner, become or remain a helpless witness to her own dishonor.
Then there's brahmacharya, celibacy. He took that vow later in life.
Yes, at age 37, while still married. For him, it became about conserving vital energy for his public work and achieving complete self-mastery. It extended beyond just sexual abstinence to controlling all senses, even diet, like giving up milk for a time.
This led to some controversial practices later, didn't it? Testing his celibacy.
Yes, very controversial. Late in life, he conducted experiments where he would sleep chastely beside young women, including his grandniece Manu. He saw this as the ultimate test of his self-control and purity, proving he was completely free from lustful thoughts, even in close proximity.
That drew a lot of criticism, even then.
Understandably so. It remains one of the most debated aspects of his personal life. His followers were divided, and critics saw it as inappropriate or even abusive, regardless of his stated intentions. He defended it as part of his experiments with truth, a necessary, albeit painful, test of his spiritual resolve.
It really shows how integrated his personal discipline and public persona were, for better or worse.
Absolutely. For him, there seems to have been no separation. The personal was political and intensely spiritual.
He was also a writer, wasn't he? Beyond the autobiography.
Oh, incredibly prolific. His first major work, Hind Swaraj, or Indian Home Rule, 1909, written on a ship back from London to South Africa, laid out his fundamental critique of modern industrial civilization and his vision for an independent India based on self-sufficiency and traditional values. It was a real blueprint.
And he edited newspapers.
Several influential ones over the years, Indian Opinion in South Africa, and later Young India, Hurjan, and Navjivan in India. These were crucial platforms for disseminating his ideas and guiding the movements. His collected works run to about 100 volumes, something like 50,000 pages.
Wow. So summing up his legacy, how is he seen today?
I mean, the accolades are immense. Greatest figure of the Indian independence movement, often called the greatest Indian since the Buddha. Asia Week named him Asian of the Century in '99. A BBC poll in 2000 called him the greatest man of the millennium,
And the title Mahatma.
meaning great soul or venerable. It seems it was first applied to him in South Africa around 1914, but Rabindranath Tagore really popularized it upon Gandhi's return to India. Interestingly, Gandhi himself said he never valued the title and was often pained by it. He felt unworthy.
What stands out most to you about his enduring influence?
For me, it has to be that global reach. We mentioned Martin Luther King Jr. earlier. Christ gave us the goals and Mahatma Gandhi the tactics. That's huge.
Nelson Mandela, too, right?
Absolutely. Albert Einstein called him a role model for the generations to come. John Lennon cited him. Barack Obama kept a portrait of him in his Senate office. Time magazine famously dubbed King, Mandela, Leswashensa, Corazon Aquino, and others children of Gandhi.
His birthday is now an international day.
October 2nd, yes. The UN declared it the International Day of Nonviolence in his honor.
Yet he never won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Nominated 5 times between 1937 and 1948, but never awarded it. The Nobel Committee has since publicly expressed regret, calling it possibly the greatest omission in their history. They didn't award the prize in 1948, the year he died, stating there was no suitable living candidate, seen by many as a posthumous tribute.
And in India today.
He's officially revered as the father of the nation, affectionately called Bapu, father. His face is on all the currency notes. Politically, his legacy is complex. While his economic ideas of village self-sufficiency, Gram Swaraj, are largely rejected by modern India's economy, his political ideals, secularism, democracy, nonviolence, are still held up as foundational, even if often contested in practice. He remains a powerful symbol.
So a figure who continues to provoke thought and inspire action.
Definitely. His life demonstrated that one person, armed with conviction and a radical commitment to truth and nonviolence, could challenge empires and arguably change the world.
And that brings us to the end of our exploration into the life of Mahatma Gandhi. What an incredible journey through a life that truly shaped the modern world.
Indeed. His legacy, as we've seen, is vast, celebrated, but also complex and sometimes controversial. It continues to inspire and challenge us today, doesn't it? Makes you consider the power of truth and nonviolence in our own lives, our own communities. Here's something to maybe mull over. In a world still so rife with conflict and division, can the core principles of Satyagraha, of truth force, offer a genuinely realistic path forward today? Or were they somehow unique to Gandhi's specific time, place, and personality?
A powerful question to end on. Thank you for your attention. You can subscribe to our podcast if you like it, and we certainly hope you gained a lot of insight from today's discussion. See you next time.